And look at the testimony, this heartbreaking testimony of this Israeli soldier. This thing called killing innocent people, it's been normalized. We were constantly told, meaning brainwashed. We were brainwashed. That's what he's saying. That there are no non-combatants in Gaza. And apparently that message sank in among the troops. This is a genocide. It has all the trappings of a genocide. The dehumanization of the civilian population, the justification under pretext of slaughtering people, even if they're civilians. The demonization of an entire civilian population for the purpose of justifying their murder, justifying slaughtering them. The rhetoric that is coming out of both the Israeli government and the Israeli media, exhorting the murder of Palestinians, pushing for, backing, encouraging, applauding the slaughter of Palestinian civilians. It has all of the trappings of a genocide. And in 2023, I was supporting Israel and I was doing videos telling people that this is not a genocide. I was telling people that, fine, look at my videos. And I'm not deleting those videos because I want to prove a point that someone can actually change, that Israel can actually lose people, and that Israel is losing people. Look at these videos from early 2023 or from late 2023. Look at these videos where this guy talking about myself is supporting you and saying you guys aren't doing a genocide. And then look at his later videos where he is saying, no, you guys are doing war crimes. No, you guys are doing a genocide. People have brains. You know, there's an old saying, you can fool some of the people all the time, but you can't fool all the people all the time. You can't fool all the people. People have brains. They have functioning brains. The problem is that Israel thinks that everyone is just a dummy. Israel thinks that everyone is just a naive Zionist. All Americans are just naive Zionists who are going to believe whatever lie we spit out. Oh, well, we didn't kill those people. It was Hamas. Oh, okay, problem solved. It was Hamas, guys. But now we have evidence. Now we have eyewitness testimonies. Now we have testimonies coming from Israeli soldiers themselves testifying that these people were murdered by the IDF. Murdered by the IDF. A senior officer familiar with the fighting in Gaza believes this marks a further deterioration in the IDF's moral standard. The power that senior field commanders wield in relation to general staff leadership threatens the chain of command, he said. According to him, my greatest fear is that the shooting and harm to civilians in Gaza aren't the result of operational necessity or poor judgment, but rather the product of an ideology. Do you guys hear that? The product of an ideology held by field commanders, which they pass down to the troops as an operational plan. So ideology has become policy. It's not rules of engagement. It's not limitations. It's not a restrained war. No. It is an ideology that has been transformed into policy. And what is the ideology? The ideology is the teaching of Rabbi Judah Loeb, who taught that it is utterly permissible, in accordance to the story in the Bible where the Shechemites were butchered by Levi and Simeon, to butcher civilians and even lie to the civilian population to bring their guard down, to make it easier to butcher them. And is that not what Israel is doing in this case? Here's some food. Here's some food. Come and get it. You're starving. Bam, 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 you're dead. They're bringing the guard down of the civilian population. They're bringing the civilian population's guard down, making them think that there is food for them to get. And when they come to get the food, they die. They get shot at. Oh, Shechemites, you guys want to convert to our religion? That's great. We'll have peace. Just get circumcised. And the Shechemites got circumcised. You can read about this in the book of Genesis. And Simeon and Levi proceeded to butcher them. It's the same evil. It is the same evil that disgusted Jacob so much that on his last dying moments, while laying on his deathbed, he looked at Levi and Simeon and said, "Let not my soul be in the company of you evildoers." And instead of the Jewish thinkers and the Jewish scholars saying, hey, that's a warning that we should not act like Simeon and Levi, the rabbis in Israel today are telling their people, many of whom are soldiers, that they must follow the ways of Simeon and Levi. They must follow the example of Simeon and Levi. Completely antithetical to the Bible. And they claim to be children of Abraham. But what does Jesus tell the Jews in John chapter 8? He says, if you were truly sons of Abraham, then you would be acting like the sons of Abraham. You would be acting like Abraham, but you're not. And what was the example that Jesus gave to prove that they were not following Abraham? He said, you guys are trying to murder me. And Abraham would not be trying to murder me. So you are not sons of Abraham. Abraham would not be doing this evil that they're doing in Gaza. He wouldn't be. Abraham would not be supporting this. And how do I know this? Because when God told Abraham, I'm going to go destroy Sodom and Gomorrah, what did Abraham tell God? He said, God, if there are 50 innocent lives in Sodom and Gomorrah, would you destroy Sodom and Gomorrah? And God said, if there are 50 innocent people in Sodom and Gomorrah, I will not destroy it. But God, if there were 20 people or 40 people, innocent people in Sodom and Gomorrah, would you still destroy Sodom and Gomorrah? And God told Abraham, if there are 20 or 30 innocent lives in Sodom and Gomorrah, I will not destroy Sodom and Gomorrah. And Abraham said, but God, if there are 10 innocent people living in Sodom and Gomorrah, would you destroy Sodom and Gomorrah? And God said, Abraham, if they are 10 innocent people living in Sodom and Gomorrah, I will not destroy Sodom and Gomorrah in order to save the lives of those 10 people. Abraham did not believe in indiscriminate massacres. Abraham did a war. It was a just war against the Iranian king Hador Laomer, and he defeated Hador Laomer and his allies, and he freed Lot and the other people who were kidnapped by Hador Laomer. He did a controlled war, but Abraham rejected the idea of indiscriminate slaughter of a civilian population. So if these people in Israel were truly sons of Abraham, they would be acting like Abraham, but they're not. They're acting like Levi. Shelling civilians. In recent weeks, the number of fatalities near food distribution areas has risen sharply, 57 on June 11th, 59 on June 17th, and around 50 on June 24th, according to Gaza's health ministry. In response, a discussion was held at Southern Command where it emerged that troops had begun dispersing crowds using artillery shells. They talk about using artillery on a junction full of civilians as if it's normal, said a military source who attended the meeting. An entire conversation about whether it's right or wrong to use artillery, without even asking why that weapon was needed in the first place. What concerns everyone is whether it'll hurt our legitimacy to keep operating in Gaza. The moral aspect is practically non-existent. No one stops to ask why dozens of civilians looking for food are being killed every day. So he's saying, listen, I was in a meeting between these military officials, and they're talking about killing the civilian population who are looking for food as if it's normal, as if it's nothing to them, because it is nothing to them. This is nothing to them. They don't give a damn about human life. And they claim to follow a God that honors human life. They don't follow God. These people follow Satan. They follow the devil. What did Jesus say to the Pharisees? He said, you are of your father, the devil. These people are following a demonic influence. They're not following God. This is not the way of God. This is not the way of the God of Israel. This is not the way of the God of Abraham. This is the way of the devil. Oh, and you can hear the gunfire, by the way. And I'm pretty certain this is the video that was reviewed by a professional on ammunition. And he said, yeah, that's Israeli gunfire. So you can hear the gunfire that's coming from an Israeli machine gun that would be stationed on a Merkava, Israeli Merkava tank. And you can see people running. And these are people who are there looking for food. So it's very obvious as to what was happening in this video. Another senior officer familiar with the fighting in Gaza said the normalization of killing civilians has often encouraged firing at them near the aid distribution centers. The fact that live fire is directed at a civilian population, whether with artillery, tanks, snipers, or drones, goes against everything the army is supposed to stand for, he said, criticizing the decisions made on the ground. Why are people collecting food being killed just because they stepped out of line or because some commander doesn't like that they're cutting in? Why have we reached a point where a teenager is willing to risk his life just to pull a sack of rice off a truck? And that's who we're firing artillery at? So here is a righteous Israeli exposing this evil. You see, this is why I don't like this sort of rhetoric that says, oh, well, it's good that Iran bomb Israel and kill all these Israeli civilians because all these civilians are evil. And that's just not true. And if you have that mindset, then you are of the same exact mentality that you criticize Israelis for having. And that's the problem with this way of thinking. You will bash the Israelis for believing in indiscriminate killing of civilians, but then when Iran does it, you guys will support it. Well, in that case, you are acting exactly how the Israelis who you claim to be against are acting. You think exactly like those Israelis who you claim to be against. So we have to have a single standard of morality here. We cannot accept the idea of indiscriminate killing of civilians. We can't say, well, that's a good thing. We can't say that opening fire on a bunch of people who are there looking for food is a good thing. Just like we shouldn't applaud the killing of Israeli civilians, because you have good people who are in Israel. You have people in the IDF who are exposing this evil, and it is thanks to these IDF soldiers that we know about these atrocities in the first place. So we should not applaud the killing of Israelis. That's just inhumane. It's immoral. It's not right. It's not Christian. It's not human. And this is why I say, this is why I believe Nazism is coming back. Because you see people applauding the indiscriminate slaughter of Israelis. I mean, this is a sign of what? It's a sign that Nazism is coming back. It's a sign that if another Hitler were to ever rise again, and it will happen, this will happen. Another Hitler is coming. But if another Hitler rises up, people are going to love him. They're going to say, oh, this guy's great because he wants to kill Jews. And you see, we are witnessing the path being paved. We are witnessing the path towards a Nazi revival being paved. Because why did so many people support Hitler? Why did so many people support Nazism? Even people outside of Germany. There were people who didn't even live in Germany. There were people who were not even German supporting Adolf Hitler. Why? Because, and I don't agree with this rhetoric. I'm not saying that this was true. I'm not saying that this was morally correct. But Jews in those days, we're talking back in the mid-20th century, Jews in those days were associated with Bolshevism. They were getting associated with communism. And the reason for this is because they were a good number of communists who just so happened to be Jews. And so communism became associated with Jews. Bolshevism, Marxism, became associated with Jews. And so the quote-unquote Jews, the Jews, and by quote-unquote I mean the use of this general term of the Jews. So therefore, according to this way of thinking, the Jews were synonymous with communism and Bolshevism. And what were the Bolsheviks? Right? The Bolsheviks were mass murderers. The Bolsheviks did horrendous atrocities in the Soviet Union. They did horrendous atrocities in Russia. They did horrendous atrocities in Ukraine. They did horrendous atrocities in Romania. They did horrendous atrocities in the Soviet Union. And so the Jewish people became associated, or they would get associated with those atrocities. And that ideology, that paradigm, that way of thinking is coming back today. But as I like to say, history does not repeat exactly, but it sure as hell does rhyme. So just as the Jews in the 20th century were associated with the atrocities done by the Bolsheviks, today the Jews are associated with the atrocities being done in Gaza. And so in the future, we're going to have a repackaged, remarketed Nazism. And this remarketed Nazism is going to make the Jewish people synonymous with bloodthirsty Zionist. And the Jewish people are going to be connected to the atrocities done by Israel. And by doing that, a genocide of the Jewish people will be upheld as a just and righteous idea, justified under the atrocities, or under the accusation that the Jews committed atrocities. And the atrocities committed by Israelis will be used as a pretext for the next Holocaust. Just as the atrocities that were done by the Bolsheviks were used as a pretext to justify the Holocaust. History does not repeat exactly. History does not repeat itself exactly, but it sure as hell does rhyme. Bottom line. Bottom line. During the meeting, senior legal officials said global criticism over the killing of civilians is mounting. So, hold on. Okay. So, senior legal officials in the Israeli government know that criticism for Israel because of its atrocities is massively increasing. They know that Israel... The problem is the fanatics don't care because they think it doesn't matter. Okay, yeah, we did some atrocities. Let them criticize us. Who cares? What are they going to do about it? Right? This is the mindset that we're facing here. This is the mindset that possesses Israel here. Senior officers in the IDF and Southern Command, however, claimed the cases are isolated and that the gunfire was directed at suspects who posed a threat. That's bullshit. It's isolated incidences. Do you know why I say this is bullshit? I'll tell you why I say this is bullshit. The Israelis have a protocol. It's called the Mosquito Protocol. And what the Mosquito Protocol is when you take a Palestinian civilian and you force that person to be a bomb sniffer. You force that person to be a human bomb detector. So you take the Palestinian, you force him to go and search in a house for bombs. Okay, there's no bombs in there. Okay, you're going to search another house. And they make you go from house to house to house to house to house. And if there is a bomb in any one of these houses, guess what? The Palestinian blows up and not the Israeli soldiers. So there was a story that came out some time ago, and it was recorded by an Israeli newspaper. And this Israeli newspaper documented a story in which Israeli soldiers kidnapped an elderly Palestinian man who was crippled. The man could not walk without a cane. And he was, I want to say 82, 83 years old. He was an old elderly man, crippled, can't walk without a cane. The Israelis took a wire, wrapped the wire around his neck, and walked him around like a dog. And no, this story is not coming out of the mouths of Palestinians. This is a story that was attested to by Israeli soldiers. Again, my sources are Israeli, not Palestinian. I use the testimonies of Israeli soldiers to substantiate the eyewitness accounts of Palestinians. This is what I do. Because I know that the pro-Israel people love to sit there and say, Palestinians are all liars. Okay, but are Israelis all liars as well? Are these Israelis liars? Okay, so going back to the story. They walked this old man around like a dog, and they forced him to search houses for bombs for 8 hours straight. 8 hours. Then, after 8 hours of being forced to be a human bomb detector, they then let him go, him and his wife, and him and his elderly wife were forced out of their house to go walk to some humanitarian zone. And as they were approaching the humanitarian zone, IDF soldiers opened fire on both of them, killing both of them. And so this story caused such an uproar that the Israeli government had to do a response, and the Israeli government said, oh, well, we investigated our people and we only found a few cases. Then an anonymous Israeli soldier, like I said, thank God for these Israeli soldiers, an anonymous Israeli soldier wrote an article for Haaretz saying that if the Israeli government was truly honest about investigating itself, investigating its military, they would have actually said that there are at least 1,000 of such cases of the Mosquito Protocol being done. At least 1,000. He said, because I saw it when I was in Gaza. And he said every single Israeli military unit in Gaza does the Mosquito Protocol. and forces Palestinians to be human bomb detectors. Every Israeli unit in Gaza has a Palestinian to be a human bomb detector. It's policy. And this article, written by an Israeli soldier, and the article was published by Haaretz, this article says that there was in fact a meeting, there was a presentation that was being conducted by a what was it? It was a brigadier commander, I believe. And the brigadier commander did a presentation, and in his presentation, he said, use a mosquito. Use the mosquito protocol. He was commanding his soldiers, his lower level commanders, to use Palestinians as bomb detectors. A source who attended the meeting told Haaretz that representatives of the Military Advocate General's office rejected the IDF's claims. According to them, the arguments do not hold up against the facts on the ground. Let's read that again. The Military Advocate General's office rejected the argument of the IDF that minimized the weight of these atrocities. So the IDF is saying it's only just a number of isolated incidences in which people are being slaughtered as they are coming to get food. And the military, this is why I say not all Israelis are bad. Everyone's acting like all Israelis are bad. And they're praising Iran for bombing Israeli civilians indiscriminately. Guys, when you say stuff like that, when you praise Iran for indiscriminately bombing Israel, you are acting just like the Israeli hardliners that you claim to be against. Would you be in favor of these Israelis who are exposing this evil being killed? Obviously not. They are good people in Israel. This is what I'm trying to tell people. Like, we can't just become monsters. You know what I mean? Like, a lot of times we will hate a monster to the point where we become a monster. And that's the danger, right? That's the danger that's always there when we get enraged at an injustice. There's always this danger. The devil is always around, you see? The devil is always around, lurking about, trying to find opportunities to influence people to do evil. So if Israelis are enraged at Hamas for what happened on October the 7th, there is the devil to say, oh, you're right to be enraged. In fact, those desires for blood that you have, they're correct impulses. You should follow through with those impulses. You should fulfill that desire for bloodshed. Go out and kill. Yes, Israeli. Yes, kill your fellow man. That's the enemy. That guy is the enemy. Kill him, slaughter him. And then you have people who get enraged at the Israeli war crimes. And guess who's there? The devil. And there's the devil. And the devil says, you know, those Israelis all deserve to be exterminated because all these Israelis are war criminals or they support atrocities. All these Israelis have been members of the IDF and they support these horrors and these crimes and these atrocities that fill you with rage and that break your heart. You should be in favor for another Holocaust. And then the devil picks up a copy of Mein Kampf and slides it, just gently slides it on the table towards you and says, remember Hitler? Remember this guy? This guy that you were told was the bad guy? Well, I have other news for you. You were lied to. He wasn't the bad guy. He was the good guy. He was trying to protect the world from this evil tumor called Israel. And it's like that scene from The Witch when the girl is being influenced by Black Phillip in the film The Witch, which is a great horror movie, by the way. It's one of the best horror films ever made. It came out in 2015. It was a big genre-changing horror film, really well done. And there is a demon in the film The Witch called Black Phillip, and Black Phillip comes in the form of a goat. And the demon is tormenting this Puritan family that's living in colonial America. And the demon is always using the weaknesses and the insecurities of each family member. So the father has his insecurities, and the devil uses that insecurity to get him to get killed. And the father gets killed. And then the mom has her insecurities, and the devil uses that. Black Phillip uses that and kills the mom. And then the devil kills the little brother, and the devil kills the little baby brother, and the devil kills the little baby sister. And the only surviving family member left is the daughter, the oldest daughter. And Black Phillip approaches her. But this time, Black Phillip shows his true demonic face. And Black Phillip goes up to this girl and he says, "Do you wish to live a life as sweet as butter?" And he slides this little, I think it was a piece of paper, to her, and he's asking her to give to him her soul. And he says, "All you need to do is give me a little bit of your blood, and I will fulfill all your desires and all your wishes, and you will live a life as rich as butter." That's the devil. That film artistically portrays how the demonic realm works. It uses our anger, our insecurities, our weaknesses against us to try to destroy us. And that's what the devil does, not just at an individual basis, but this is what the demonic realm does on a global basis, on a collective basis. And so the devil goes to the Palestinians and says, "Well, you're being mistreated by the Israeli occupation. And so you deserve to go into Israel and butcher people." And so you had October the 7th. And then the devil, the diabolical realm, goes to the Israeli people and says, "You're very angry about what the Palestinians did. I understand that completely. You deserve to commit a genocide." And then the devil goes to the people who are angry at the Israelis and says, "Do you wish to enact sweet revenge, as sweet as butter?" And the devil slides that Mein Kampf book. And this is the danger that we are facing this is the danger that we are facing collectively. Really, it's not just as a people, as a race, as a species, or whatever. This is a danger that we are facing at a global level. This temptation to look at Hitler as if he's a good guy because of the evils of Israel. And this is the great temptation. This is the great political / ideological temptation that a lot of people are being faced with, and a lot of people are falling for. They're falling for this temptation. And this is the great danger. And this is why I say there's going to be another Hitler. And when he is seen, the world will look at him like a conquering hero. They will look at him like a messianic figure. And they will praise him as a messianic figure, and they will say, "This man will save us from Jewish control and Jewish domination. He will save us from the Jewish lobby. He will save us from this warmongering party that wants us to do continual wars for Israel." And people will love him. That the Military Advocate General's office rejected the IDF's claims. According to them, the arguments do not hold up against the facts on the ground. So there are still people in Israel who want to see justice being observed. And they're saying, "No, IDF, you're lying." So the Israeli Military Advocate General is saying to the IDF, "You're lying. The evidence that we have on the ground contradicts your claim that there are only a few isolated incidences wherein IDF soldiers are massacring people as they try to get food at the food distribution centers." And this is what the Military Advocate General's office said, quote, "The claim that these are isolated cases doesn't align with incidents in which grenades were dropped from the air and mortars and artillery were fired at civilians." Oh my, so guys, the Hospirists have no argument. That is it. Before, they were gaslighting us and telling us that it was Hamas doing the killing. Now, when we debate these people, we can say, dude, even the Military Advocate General's office in the Israeli government said that the claim that these were just isolated incidences is not true. And even the Advocate General, the Military Advocate General's office, has admitted that atrocities are being done and have been done. Grenades were dropped from the air. They're dropping grenades on people. People looking for food. Let's just drop grenades on them. Why? Oh, because it's fun. Mortars and artillery were fired at civilians. This isn't about a few people being killed. We're talking about dozens of casualties every single day. Massacres. Every day a massacre. That's what we're dealing with. This is no longer just a case of, oh, well, we dropped a bomb or we did an airstrike to kill some terrorists. And, oh, yeah, tragically enough, some civilians died. But, this is the tragedy of war. That's not the situation that we're dealing with here. We are dealing with soldiers at food distribution centers who are there to facilitate the giving of food to starving people. And they are opening fire on starving people. Not terrorists, not people with guns, not Hamas thugs. This is not a battle. We're not talking about a battle on the battlefield. This is a systematic policy of massacres. That's what this is. Although the military advocate general instructed the fact-finding assessment mechanism to examine recent shooting incidents, these represent only a small portion of the cases in which hundreds of uninvolved civilians were killed. Senior IDF officials expressed frustration that the Southern Command has failed to investigate these incidents thoroughly and is disregarding civilian deaths in Gaza. Let's read that again. Senior IDF officials expressed frustration that the Southern Command has failed to investigate these incidents. So even people in the IDF are saying that this atrocity is not being investigated? So how is the pro-Israel position even a winning position anymore? Dude, I watched last week as Israel got their finest propagandist, their finest hospitalist, Konstantin Kisin, to do a debate, right? Israel's finest hospitalist is Konstantin Kisin. He's their best hospitalist. He's their best guy. Konstantin Kisin lost the debate. And he's a really good debater. He's not a bad debater. He lost the debate. But Konstantin Kisin is so used to debating, wokies. He's so used to debating the woke left. The problem is the woke left. That's the problem is the woke left, not Israel. The problem is the woke left. Israel butchering children and killing mothers and killing fathers and killing people who are starving for food, killing people who are rushing food distribution centers, who are desperate for food, have been starving for days, and then getting shot while they're trying to get food. That's not the problem. The problem is the woke left. That's the problem. It is a threat to our free speech. Now, mind you, I want you to support a country that is currently massacring people who are desperate for food, massacring people as they're trying to get food for their starving families. But I want you to hate the woke left. I want you to support Israel, but I want you to go against the woke left, not Israel. Never mind them. Don't mind the Israelis, all right? Don't mind the Israelis committing atrocities. No. It's the woke left that's the problem. That's the problem. The woke left, everyone. This is why I kept telling people that whole woke left thing is a freaking, it's just a giant, distraction. It's a giant distraction to get people to ignore the evils of the hardline righties. That's what it is. I truly believe that, because you have people online, you have these figureheads, these right-wing figureheads, who want you to support some crazy hardline right-wing policy or some hardline right-wing ideology, some crazy ultranationalism, or they want you to worship Israel. But while they don't want you to criticize Israel, they want you to hate the woke left. The pro-Israel position is no longer a winning position. It's not. It is no longer a winning position. How in the hell can you defend this? How can you defend this? Now, you can make the argument and say, well, Ted, there are people in the Israeli government who hate what's happening, and there's no one in the Hamas government who hated what happened on October the 7th. Okay, fine. I'll grant that. I'll take that. But the fact that you have IDF officials saying, hey, this isn't being investigated, attests to a government policy of doing atrocities. That's the whole point. Listen. During the Armenian genocide, you could have found Ottoman officials who hated the Armenian genocide and went out of their way to save Armenians. That did not mean that there was no policy of extermination. In Nazi Germany, you could have found Third Reich officials who were against what was happening in the Holocaust. That doesn't mean there was no policy of extermination by the Third Reich. Do you see what I'm trying to say here? So yes, you find Israelis in the Israeli military, in the Israeli government, who say this is evil, and they're righteous people. They're good people. Don't get me wrong. I'm very happy for these people because they are exposing to the world what is happening. Without them, we would not be able to fully prove that these atrocities have been and are taking place. With that said, the presence of these good people is not evidence that there is no policy of extermination, because clearly there is a policy of doing atrocities. And if there was no policy of doing atrocities, then why in the hell do you have these officials complaining that there is no serious investigation being done on these atrocities? So it says here that the senior IDF officials expressed frustration that the Southern Command has failed to investigate these incidents thoroughly and is disregarding civilian deaths in Gaza. According to military sources, Southern Command Chief Major General Yaniv Assor typically conducts only preliminary inquiries, relying mostly on the accounts of field commanders. He has not taken disciplinary action against officers whose soldiers harm civilians. Again, let's go back to what I was saying. Yes, you have righteous Israelis who are against this, but again, you have clearly a policy of doing atrocities, and this is proven by the fact that no disciplinary action has been done against anyone doing these atrocities. None whatsoever. An IDF spokesperson responded, quote, Hamas is a brutal terrorist organization that starves the Gazan population. So again, they're trying to do a deflection and blame Hamas, and they're not taking into account what their side is doing. They just want to deflect all of our attention on Hamas so that we don't pay attention to the evils that Israel is doing. And this is the problem with people. Most people have this mentality that wants to make it out as if their side does no wrong. So if they're pro-Palestine, Palestinian side does no wrong. If they're pro-Israel, the Israeli side does no wrong. And so they have to defend Israel no matter what. And when you see clear evidence of Israeli war crimes, guess what? They have to defend Israel no matter what, by either acting as if the war crimes have never happened, by trying to say that the war crimes were done by Hamas, by trying to say that the war crimes were necessary and those Palestinians were asking for it, right? They will do anything to either get people to be convinced that no war crimes were happening, or to get people to just forget that they even happened. And they do that by just pushing the subject aside and not talking about it, hoping that these stories just escape the collective radars of people. So this guy goes on to say, Hamas does everything in its power to prevent the successful distribution of food in Gaza and to disrupt humanitarian aid. So even if this is true, even if it's true what this guy is saying, let's say he's right. Let's say Hamas does all these evil things. Doesn't justify what Israel is doing. The IDF allows the American civil society organization GHF to operate independently and distribute aid to Gaza residents. The IDF operates near the new distribution areas to enable distribution while continuing operational activities in the Strip. I'm going to say, for the sake of argument, this man is 100% right. Everything that he says in this statement is 100% truthful. It doesn't justify what Israel is doing, no matter how you look at it. 15, 20 years ago, it was a lot easier to defend Israel. Even 10 years ago, even 8 years ago, it was a lot easier to defend Israel. And now, not even Israel's top hospirist, not even Israel's top propagandist can defend Israel. And you just look at the whole situation, and you have to come to the conclusion that the whole hospirist position is a losing war. It is a losing war. It's an indefensible position. You can't really defend Israel anymore, especially now. You see, before it was easy for Israel just to lie about stuff. There was a massacre of Palestinians trying to get food. Israel just came out and said, oh, Hamas did it. That was Hamas. Guess what? No one believed Israel. Why? Because of what the hell Israel has been doing in Gaza for the past 20 plus months. And now, recently, Haaretz publishes an article. Haaretz, the major Israeli publication, publishes an article recently in which they show the testimonies, they present the testimonies of various Israeli soldiers who have served as guards outside of these food distribution centers. And these Israeli soldiers tell Haaretz, yeah, we watched as the IDF fired on civilians. We were ordered to fire on civilians. So now Israel can't lie. That's it. It's indefensible. Are you going to defend Israel? Because the hospirists, they love to defend Israel over anything. Israel could do no wrong. Well, they shot people as they were trying to get food at food distribution centers. No, that's a lie. They can't say that. And if they can't say that without looking either dishonest or very naive.